My name is Elise. I'm 33 years old. And I think I might have ruined everything because of something I felt before I even understood why. You ever have a moment you wish you could swallow back into silence? Just, unsay it, unfeel it, unsee it? That moment for me was standing in my boyfriend's kitchen. Zach was laughing about an old high school story, scrolling through yearbook photos with his best friend Connor, and then he paused, turned the phone toward me, and said, "Guess who this is?" I smiled, leaned in, saw a younger version of a woman with deep brown eyes, confident posture, that kind of effortless charm that doesn't age the way beauty normally does. And without thinking, I said it out loud, "She still looks beautiful." Connor went quiet. Zach laughed. I felt my chest tighten before the words even landed. "She's my mom," Connor said. I didn't fall in love with Zach like lightning. It was slower, like stepping into the ocean at dusk. Gentle. Warm. Safe. We met at a coffee shop when I was 26, both pretending not to be watching each other while pretending to read. He asked me what I was reading, I asked him if he was stalling on purpose. It was banter, playful and low stakes. But our first kiss felt like a secret only we knew, heavy with promise. In the early years, his touch felt like home. The kind of comfort that made you believe in Sunday mornings and inside jokes and shared toothbrushes. He'd hold me from behind while I washed dishes, kiss the back of my neck just because. We'd fall asleep tangled up, legs and hearts interlaced. We had sex like we were building something, a language only we could speak. But the thing no one tells you is that safety and passion can start to fight each other when the years pass and the silence between kisses grows longer than the kisses themselves. I started noticing it in small moments. The way he'd kiss me goodbye in the morning, quick, distracted, already mentally out the door. How his hand would rest on my lower back at parties, not in affection but out of routine. The way he'd roll over after sex, not cruelly, just, done. We still cuddled, technically. But sometimes his arms felt like a cage instead of a shelter. Sometimes I'd lean into him and wonder when I stopped wanting to. I started feeling invisible in the relationship, like I was playing a part one hadn't auditioned for in years. I stopped initiating. Stopped asking for more. I convinced myself it was just a phase, work stress, pandemic burnout, hormonal shifts. All those acceptable explanations that keep you from naming the real thing. Until that night. When I saw the photo of Connor's mom, something stirred in me I wasn't prepared for. It wasn't lust. It wasn't about gender or rebellion or anything you'd expect. It was how she looked. Alive. Confident. Like a woman who knew herself. I realized I missed feeling that way. I missed being looked at like that, the way I used to look at myself. I missed being seen as beautiful in the kind of way that made someone pause mid-sentence, the way Zach used to when I'd walk into the room barefoot in one of his shirts. That night, I went to bed with Zach. He kissed me goodnight like always. I kissed him back, and it was fine. But it felt like I was kissing him from across a distance neither of us had named. That was the moment. Lying beside someone I loved, realizing I didn't feel seen, and that I hadn't, for a long time. And worse. I wasn't sure if he noticed. Or if I still cared that he didn't. Zach's a firefighter. The kind who runs into burning buildings like he's immune to fear, then comes home and leaves his trauma in neat little piles, shoes by the door, keys on the hook, silence in his throat. He loves with action. Fixing things. Lifting heavy boxes without being asked. Making me coffee in the morning and warming my car in the winter. He shows love like he's putting out fires, practical, immediate, physical. But I needed something different. One Thursday night, after a particularly draining workday, I sat on the couch with a glass of wine, staring at nothing. Zach came in, sweaty from the gym, dropped his duffel on the floor, and walked over behind me. He leaned down and kissed my shoulder. "You okay?" he mumbled into my skin. "Yeah," I said, too fast, too flat. He took that as an invitation. Hands on my waist. His mouth grazing my neck. Gentle, but eager. I froze. Not because I didn't love him, but because I felt like a body, not a person. I'm just tired, I whispered. He paused. Then sighed and sat beside me, rubbing his palms against his thighs. You've been tired a lot lately. I didn't know how to say what I meant, that my exhaustion wasn't physical. That I needed him to ask what I was feeling, not just how my day was. That I missed talking without distractions, missed laughter that wasn't tied to sarcasm or Netflix. That sex felt like a shortcut to something we hadn't built. Instead, I just nodded. Yeah. I guess I have. He looked at me, that worried furrow between his brows, the same one he wore when the fire alarms blared at 2 a.m. and he knew lives were on the line. I miss us, he said, placing his hand on my knee. I wanted to say, me too. But instead, I looked away and said, I'm fine. Because if I said anything else, I was afraid I'd unravel. And he, being who he was, a man trained to fix things, not feel them, didn't push. Instead, he kissed my cheek, got up to shower, and left me alone in a room full of things we never said. It was a Saturday afternoon, the kind where sunlight spills through the kitchen window in golden stripes and everything feels like it should be easier than it is. I was unloading groceries, zoning out as I lined up jars in the pantry, pretending not to notice the silence between us. Zach had been off that day, finally, no shifts, no emergencies. Just us. He walked in behind me and wrapped his arms around my waist, resting his chin on my shoulder. He said into my neck. You smell good. I stiffened slightly, even as I smiled. That's just garlic from the bread aisle. He chuckled. Nah. It's you. His hands slid a little lower, fingers grazing my hips. I didn't move, didn't encourage, didn't respond, but I didn't push him away either. Then he smacked my butt, gently, playfully, like he always used to. Like I used to love. I flinched. Just a fraction. But he noticed. He paused. What was that? Nothing, I said quickly, stepping away to grab the olive oil. Elise, he said, his voice more confused than accusatory. You keep doing that. Doing what? Pulling away. I'm not. He raised an eyebrow. You are. Lately it feels like I can't touch you without you, tensing up. I turned around, holding the bottle, hugging it to my chest like a shield. Maybe because you only touch me when you want something. His jaw clenched slightly. That's not fair. I'm not trying to be fair. The silence stretched. I just want to be close to you, he said, voice low, vulnerable. That's all. I could see it, the sincerity in his face. The way his eyes searched mine for some kind of softness, some old signal that the door was still open. But I couldn't find it in me. He stepped toward me again, and this time when he kissed me, soft, lips lingering, I let him. But I didn't kiss back. I stood there, letting it happen. Going through the motions. Waiting for it to feel like it used to. It didn't. He pulled away slowly, sensing it. You okay? Yeah, I said, barely audible. And I meant it in the most dishonest way. Because in that moment, all I could think was, why does everything have to turn into sex? We were out at our usual Italian place, the one with the string lights on the patio and the waiters who knew our names. It used to feel romantic. Familiar in the way good relationships are supposed to. Tonight, it felt like a stage I didn't belong on anymore. Zach had made the reservation himself. No prompting, no forgetting. He even wore that navy shirt I once told him made his shoulders look unfairly good. I knew he was trying. Halfway through the pasta, he reached across the table and touched my hand gently. I've been thinking, he said. Maybe we should take a weekend. Just us. No phones. Go to the cabin. Reconnect. I nodded, twisting my fork through my linguine. I just miss how we used to be, he said. Back when you'd kiss me in the middle of the aisle at Target. Remember that? I smiled, but it felt like someone else's memory. Then he added, trying to be playful, and hey, if we run into my old yearbooks again, I'll make sure you don't fall in love with anyone else's mom. I froze. He laughed. And something inside me cracked. I wasn't falling in love with her, I snapped. Zach blinked. Elise, no, you always bring that up like it was some joke. But it wasn't about her. It was about me. I saw someone who looked confident. Alive. Beautiful. And it hit me that I didn't feel like that anymore. Not to you. Not to myself. He leaned back, stunned. I never said you weren't beautiful. You didn't have to, I said, voice trembling now. You stopped looking at me like I was. I felt it before I saw it, the tears brimming, breaking. You only touch me when you're horny or guilty. You don't talk to me, Zach. You don't ask what's wrong, you just try to fix it with sex or a weekend away, like I'm some puzzle you can solve with proximity. His mouth opened. Then closed. Then opened again. Jesus, Elise. I didn't know you felt like this. Because I didn't feel like I was allowed to. You come home burnt out and silent, and I don't want to add more to your plate. So I just stopped asking for more. And now I don't know how to start again. The patio went blurry. My face was hot. Somewhere in the background, silverware clinked, glasses laughed. But at our table, everything was still. Zach looked like I'd slapped him. Not angry. Not exactly. Just gutted. I was trying, he finally said, voice hoarse. Maybe not perfectly. But I was. I nodded, tears falling faster than I could blink them away. I know. Part 8, Aftermath. In the car, we didn't speak. At home, he went into the bedroom. I stayed on the couch. I curled my knees to my chest and stared at the dark TV screen, watching my own reflection, a mess of mascara and exhaustion. The guilt came first. Heavy and familiar. Then the shame, for waiting so long to say it out loud, for ruining what was supposed to be a moment of kindness, for making him the villain in a story we were both losing. But underneath all that was something else. A quiet clarity. I wasn't angry because he touched me. I was angry because I missed being reached for. Not with hands. With heart. And I didn't know if either of us remembered how. The days blurred. Not in dramatic, cinematic silence, just in the quiet, everyday kind that chips away at you slowly. We still lived together. Still made coffee. Still passed each other in the hallway with the politeness of coworkers in a shared office. But the us was gone. Zach stopped trying to initiate anything, affection, conversation, even eye contact. And that hurt more than I expected. I'd walk into the kitchen in the morning and see him already dressed for his shift, scrolling through his phone like I was background noise. Sometimes he'd glance up and offer a half smile. Sometimes he didn't. He still warmed my car, though. Still left out my favorite tea when I was coughing. Still made sure the smoke alarm batteries were changed. But his voice? I missed it. I missed the way he used to tell me stories about his station, the chaos, the inside jokes, the lives saved or lost. I missed hearing him want to tell me things. And I hated that I'd made him afraid to speak. One night, I heard him in the living room after I'd gone to bed. He was sitting on the couch in the dark, staring at the wall, fingers loosely clasped in his lap like he'd forgotten how to rest. Like he wasn't sure what to do with himself without me. I almost went to him. Almost. But I didn't know what I'd say. And I think that scared me more than the silence. Part 10, Her Crossroads. I missed him. God, I missed him. But not just the version of him who brought home takeout and kissed me behind the fridge door. I missed us before we started loving each other with half-closed eyes. I started noticing the sadness in his face. Not anger. Not resentment. Just this worn-down, disappointed ache, like he knew he was losing something and didn't know how to hold on anymore. And I hated myself for my part in that. I replayed that night at the restaurant over and over. The things I said. The look on his face when he realized how far I'd drifted. I wanted to tell him I still loved him. That my frustration came from wanting more, not less. That I didn't need fireworks or grand gestures, just real moments, real connection. But I didn't know if it was too late. One afternoon, I stood in the laundry room, folding a pair of his uniform pants, and my throat caught. It was the smallest thing, a torn patch on the hem. Probably something he didn't even notice. Something I used to fix without thinking. And I just stood there, holding it in my hands like it was the last piece of something sacred. That's when I realized I had a choice. I could stay quiet. Stay distant. Let the silence win. Or I could walk into the living room, sit beside him, and say the scariest thing I'd ever said in our entire relationship: I want to try again. But I don't know how. I breathed in. Folded the pants. And started walking. I found him in the living room again, this time not sitting upright, but curled into the corner of the couch, half asleep, still in his t-shirt and work pants. One arm tucked behind his head, his mouth slightly open. Vulnerable in a way he never let himself be during the day. For a moment, I just stood there. Noticed the way the soft light from the hallway hit his face. The fine lines around his eyes. The exhaustion in his posture that had nothing to do with the fires he ran into. It was the weight of loving someone who no longer let him in. I walked over and sat down quietly beside him, careful not to wake him. Just close enough to feel his warmth. After a few minutes, he stirred. Opened his eyes slowly. Saw me. "Elise," he whispered, as if surprised I was still real. I nodded. "Yeah. It's me." He sat up slowly. "You okay?" "No," I said. "But I want to be." He looked at me for a long time. Not suspicious. Not guarded. Just waiting. "I miss you," I said softly. "I miss us. But I don't know if we're still there. Or if we just keep circling the memory of who we used to be." Zach rubbed his face with one hand, exhaling through his nose. "I've been trying to figure that out too." We sat there for what felt like hours. Not arguing. Not solving anything. Just letting the ache be acknowledged. Then, without a word, he reached out and pulled me in. I rested my head on his chest, and he wrapped his arms around me. The way he used to. Only this time, it wasn't a habit. It was a choice. His chin rested on my hair. His heart beat against my cheek. No kissing. No expectation. Just the quiet presence of someone still holding on. "I don't want to lose you," he whispered. "I don't either," I said. And it was the truest thing I'd spoken in weeks. We didn't promise to fix everything that night. We didn't have a breakthrough or rediscover passion with a kiss. But we did something better, we stayed. In the discomfort. In the honesty. In the trying. And for now, that was enough. You think that love fades like a light switch, on, then off. But that's not how it happens. It flickers. It dims. It sputters when the oxygen thins, when no one remembers to open the windows and let the air back in. I used to think desire was about attraction. About sex. About being touched, or wanted, or devoured in the dark. But now I know, desire lives in the in-between. In being seen. In being known when you're not trying to be beautiful. In being understood when you don't even know how to explain yourself. Zach and we're still learning how to do that. Some days we're close. Other days we're strangers in the same kitchen. But I've learned that the real threat to love isn't distance. It's silence. The kind that builds like snow until you can't find the front door anymore. So I talk now. Even when I'm scared. Even when I shake. I ask for what I need, even if my voice cracks. I touch him when I don't know what to say. I don't assume anymore that he can read my mind. And I don't try to read his, either. I ask. Because I realized something else too, something that took me losing parts of myself to see. Closeness isn't something you fall into. It's something you choose. Over and over. Even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard. And if there's one thing I could leave you with, it's this: don't wait until the person you love becomes a stranger in your arms. Talk. Even if it's messy. Even if it's too late. Because sometimes, the only way back is through.